So we are back with the week 7 assignment. And what we've got at the beginning here is just some decimal addition. My iPad is being bad, of course. So what we've got to do when we add decimals is make sure that we line up the decimal. So we'll go ahead and rewrite this, 12.85. And then I'm just going to put the decimal for the other number right underneath the first one. That helps me remember to line them up. So I'm adding 9.418. And so one strategy we could do as well with this is kind of put some lines down here to help us see things lined up the way that they should be. If you're not a fan of that, you don't need to do that, but sometimes it helps for some people. Basically, and then the other thing that we can do is anywhere we have an empty space at the end here, we can put a 0 in. It just helps some people kind of make sense of it as well. So we'll begin adding from right to left, just like with whole numbers. And so 0 plus 8 is 8. 5 plus 1 is 6. 8 plus 4 is 12. Carry the 1. 9, 10, 11, 12. Carry the 1. That gives me another 2. And now, just like all of the rest of this, my decimal is lined up vertically with the other decimals. And so the answer for number 1 would be 22.268. Okay, and number 2, we are going to be doing the same thing with the decimal. Anytime we add or subtract decimals, we just need to remember to line the decimal up. And so, again, here's my decimal right underneath my previous decimal. And as I mentioned for the last problem, if we have an empty space at the end, we can put a 0 there. This time we are subtracting, and we will need to do some borrowing. So basically what we've got is we can't take 5 away from 0, so we need to borrow from the 1. That makes that a 10. 10 minus 5 is going to be 5. Again, we can't take 4 away from 0, so we need to borrow from the 5 over here. That's going to make that a 4. And that's going to make that a 10. And then 10 minus 4 is 6. Decimal comes straight down. 4 minus 3 is 1. And that 4 on the left there is nothing is being subtracted from it, so we have the 4 just comes down. So 41.65 is what we get for an answer for number 2. Number 3, we have a chain of addition and subtraction going on here. So we do need to remember the order of operations for this, and that we add or subtract from left to right. It is not that we add and then subtract. So keeping that in mind, we will do the subtraction first because we do them from left to right. And so 18.53 minus 5.7. Again, I have an empty spot there, so I will fill it with a 0. So 3 minus 0 is 3. I can't take 7 away from 5, so I will have to borrow from the 8. Making that a 7, and making the 5 into a 15. So 15 minus 7 is 8. Bring the decimal down. 7 minus 5 is 2. And the 1 minus nothing remains a 1, so I get 12.83. Next, we're going to add that to 2.9. So 12.83 plus 2.9. And again, we line the decimal up. I do have an empty spot, so I will put a 0. And so 3 plus 0 is 0. 9 plus 8 is 17. And we need to carry the 1. Keep the decimal lined up. And then 2 plus 2 plus 1 makes 5. And 1 plus nothing is just 1. So my final answer for this one is going to be 15.73. Okay. Moving on to number 4. We've got to do this by hand, which is tons of fun. And one cool thing about multiplication is we could do the multiplication like this. Or we could put the number with fewer digits on the bottom, which would be less work. And so that's what I'm going to do. 1.02 times 7.3. Now I only need to multiply by 2 numbers instead of 3. And that's a little bit less work, so that's what I'm going to choose to do. And we get 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 1 is 3. We need a 0 as a placeholder here because now we're multiplying by the tens spot. So 7 times 2 is 14. Carry the 1. 7 times 0 is 0. And this is a tricky one. A lot of people would put 8 here. But 7 times 0 is 0 plus 1 makes 1, not 8. And then 7 times 1 is 7. So we do get 6 plus 0 is 6, 4 plus 0 is 4, 3 plus 1 is 4, and 7 is by itself. The last piece for this is to count how many digits we have after the decimal. And so after the decimal here I've got 2 digits, and here I've got 1 digit. So I need 3 total digits after the decimal in my final answer. And that's going to make my final answer look like 1, 2, 3. So my decimal is going to land right there. 7.446 is what I get as a final answer for number 4. Okay, moving on to number 5. This time we've got 3 digits in both numbers, and so it's going to be pretty much the same amount of work no matter how we line these up. So I will go ahead and leave it the way it is this time. We've got 30.4 times 1.92. And so the 2 times 4 is going to make an 8. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 3 is 6. I do need a placeholder 0 because now I'm moving over to the tens spot. And so 9 times 4 is 36. I need to carry my 3. 9 times 0, is 0, plus 3 is 3. And 9 times 3 is 27. And next I need 2 placeholders now because we are over into the hundreds place. And so 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 0 is 0, and 1 times 3 is 3. We'll add those up. We get 8, 6, 13, carry the 1, 8, and 5. So 5, 8, 3, 6, 8. And again, the way that we figure out where the decimal goes is by counting how many spaces we have after how many numbers we have after the decimal. In this case, it is 3. So our final answer needs to have 3 numbers after the decimal. And there we go, 58.368. Number 6. We have 3.43 divided by 7. And so 7 does not go into 3, so we can't do anything there. The decimal is going to come straight up. 7 goes into 34 4 times, and that makes 28. 7 times 4 is 28, so we're going to subtract 28 from right here. 34 minus 28 leaves us with 6, and the 3 comes down, makes 63. 7 goes into 63 9 times evenly, so our final answer for this one is going to be 0.49. And lastly, we've got this one, which is particularly nasty. So we're going to have 0.124 divided by 0.35. I'm going to move that down a little bit so I've got a little bit more room to work. Okay, and so I'm going to have to think about this one a little bit. First thing, let me check something on the last problem that we did. Okay. The first thing is that we need to, on that number on the outside, sort of turn it into a whole number by moving the decimal place. And so we need to move the decimal place 2 spots out here. Then we also need to move the decimal place 2 spots in there. And so decimal is going to end up right there, and it needs to float straight up. So 35 does not go into 1. 35 does also not go into 12. And 35 does go into 124 3 times. And so 3 times 35 is 105. So we subtract that, we get 19. 35 does not go into 19, so we need to add a 0 and bring it down. 35 goes into 190, I think 5 times. Let's try 5. 150 plus 25 is 175, I think. Yep. And so that is going to leave us with 15. Now I notice that we're supposed to round our answer to the nearest tenth. And so I don't need to go any further because I have the information that I need to round my answer to the nearest tenth. 0.35 is going to turn into 0.4. I round up to 0.4 because the 5 after the 3 causes me to round up. And so my final answer for number 7 is going to be 0.4. With that, that's it for week 7 written homework. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have an awesome day.